You know how much I sacrificed?
Obviously, you're not a golfer.
I must have drank me about 15 Dr. Peppers.
Congratulations. How do you feel?
I gotta pay.
We have heard the chimes at midnight, Master Romeo.
You're an inanimate fucking object! You told I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Who the fuck has the goddamn gall to call his house on a Tuesday night? God!
Well, I do just want to say welcome back, you two dumb motherfuckers. I hope that y'all had a good little break from the slew of movies and that y'all have seen something that is worth a dime because I'm ready to talk about Rolling Thunder hard.
Oh yeah, me too. Just saw it last night. Ready to get into that one. But yeah, that's gonna be dope.
That's my personal favorite of the three this week.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
I guess just a brief for the viewers. We're back, bitches. Like the fucking McRib. It's although I think now we're under a different name. No more watching for the weekend. That is deceased. We are now. Do we all agree on 3 for 3, or are we
Yeah,
still
I'm cool
mulling
with
it
that.
over?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
So the inaugural episode of that. So we're gonna talk about 3 different movies. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into Rolling Thunder. And just for the audience, brief synopsis for this one, we'll just get into it right here, is William Devane plays a Vietnam vet who comes home after being imprisoned and tortured for many years, and he is a little fucked up, having a little trouble readjusting,
Just a
and
little.
just a little bit. I know it's difficult to believe for a Paul Schrader written movie that someone's having trouble adjusting to normal life and is
To
struggling
society.
being crazy. Yeah. So he's a little fucked up, and then to make matters worse, he comes home and he finds out his wife is fucking some other dude, and she wants a divorce, and she wants to take the kid with her, and all that good stuff. And then to make matters even worse, these motherfuckers, this discount Burt Reynolds looking motherfucker, barges into his house with some other
Exit.
guys, and
X.
they rob him, and they want to take his silver dollars that he got, and they fuck up his hand, and they kill his wife and son, and now he's on a quest for revenge.
With a hook hand.
And with one hand, he's got like a hook hand, and now he's got to fucking take them all down. So that's the basic
I like to
premise.
think of it as a claw because he has the ability to like reload shells with it and stuff. So
Yeah, exactly. And then
Only Buster Bluth had that ability.
so yeah, what did you guys think of it?
personally, and Matt texted me this as well. I don't care who the fuck directed this movie. This is a Paul Schrader movie.
Yeah,
This movie
all over it.
Mhm.
just I love how dark, but like it's on its surface level, it's a very slow movie, but I feel like it just is pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And you know that last bit when he gets that sweet, sweet satisfaction with Tommy. It's just
All he
Yeah.
was missing was a journal and some narration. And that
Yeah,
was
exactly. This is honestly, out of every Paul Schrader movie I've ever seen, it was the least Paul Schrader movie, but still very Paul Schrader. It's like this was obvious. It's not as much, like guy slowly losing his sanity more and more as his movies normally are. Like,
well, he's already lost his sanity when we start the movie.
yeah, I mean, he
Very
pretty much,
clearly.
it was already gone, I guess, by the time the movie started. That's the difference this time around. But yeah, this one was interesting. Like, I had no idea what to expect. Like, I really, I was expecting just some kind of like, average, just kind of like 70s like exploitation, low budget kind of revenge movie type deal. And I wasn't expecting it to be like so well written, and so I should have with Paul Schrader, that goes without saying, but I definitely wasn't expecting it to be my favorite of the three. But it was, I mean, I thought just fantastic all around. I thought it was very just like it's such a simple, it's one of those movies where you see it every now and then where it's like the pitch for this probably was a very simple pitch. Like, yeah, it's just a guy who, his family gets killed and he goes out for revenge and it's that kind of movie. But then when they wrote it with so much more depth than the producers probably ever expected. And genuinely, not only is William Devane's character's arc um so fantastic and his performance is great, but to me, like the heart of the movie was his relationship with the girl. Um that was honestly my favorite aspect about it. Just a lot of great scenes between the two of them. They really fleshed her out as a character a lot. And
What
it's
kind
fun.
of fucking badass do you got to be to take a girl on a date to go visit the fucking schmucks that ruined your entire life and that you're about to just terminate off?
Exactly. Just like, hey baby, watch this. Watch what I'm gonna do.
The
But
original stigma.
yeah, and he was kind of getting on my nerves at first, the way he kept like sending her in there to like, into danger. I was just
Mhm.
kind of like, can you give her a heads up or something? Like, and just when they're like going off the road and he pulled the car over, it was just kind of like, again, I was kind of getting frustrated with him. I'm like, stop being such a like dick. But after that, they kind of talked it out, and he kind of, like they had that really kind of sweet moment in the hotel room where, they kind of, I don't know, were like vulnerable with each other and stuff. And it was just like, okay, yeah, like I just really liked the progression of their relationship. It just seemed really like, I don't know, kind of like sweet and understated at the same time, you know? Um, but yeah, and it was also the action scenes, like the whole last shootout was like so fantastic, I thought. Just very well staged, very satisfying. When he gets that discount Burt Reynolds looking motherfucker, that was just like, super, because he was being such a prick in the earlier scene where they rob him, talking about those
And,
silver
yeah,
dollars.
like, did
Yeah.
y'all have a favorite scene in particular?
What'd you say?
Did y'all have a favorite scene in particular? Because I know a big standout would be the robbery scene with the garbage disposal.
Yeah, that was definitely a very, very tense, very effective scene. And I read what's funny is apparently they had originally shot that scene was much, much, much more gruesome, the version that they shot. They actually like showed his hand like getting chopped up in the garbage disposal, and it was like super like gory and bloody, but apparently it like freaked out the test audiences so much that they had to cut it out of the movie.
I wish
So
they had still kept the footage somewhere.
I
Again,
know,
like
like I would
deleted
love
scene at
to, and
least
like a
or
deleted, like
unrated.
behind the scenes thing, I would love to see, yeah, like what that would have looked like. But I thought even without that, it was still very effective. I mean, that scene was just very upsetting and very, just like you just hated those fucking guys so much. Especially since, I mean, it was bad enough that they like maimed his hand and like, tortured him and shit. And then just like the added just fuck you bonus of killing his wife and kid when they had gotten what they wanted already. It was so just like, oh, you dickheads. Like it was so satisfying, watching him finally get revenge. And, there were also a lot of like really great, I don't know about you guys, but I thought there were a lot of great like understated moments, like or just like character arcs. Like Tommy Lee Jones's arc, I thought was like very subtle and kind of easy to miss, but like really, really like really profound, like in the way that every time you see him, he's kind of dealing with his own level of disconnection from everybody. Like that scene where he's with his family and they're all just like chattering on and he's just kind of sitting there and you can tell he's just totally zoned out, not listening. And you can tell throughout the whole thing he kind of is having problems with just readjusting in various ways, like the scene where he's with the prostitute you can see he's just like he could not be less into it. He's
Yeah.
just kind of like, I don't like, can we just get to the part where we shoot everybody already? That's all I really like know anymore at this point, you know?
His
Like,
line he was like, she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm about to fucking kill some people.
yeah, he said we're about to kill a lot of people. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's pretty much all I got at this point. But
I like how he just kind of gets his uniform on and he's like, all right, we're gonna go kill these fuckers together. You know,
like,
like
and
without saying a word,
as
just
soon as
that's it.
William Devane tells him, he's like, let's fucking do it. Let's go. I'm ready.
Yep.
That's all. That's probably all he's been thinking about since he got back. So, it's again, yeah, I thought it was just very surprising, how how much more depth there was to, it's like not too long ago, a few months ago, I saw Stanley Kubrick's The Killing, and that was the same kind of situation as this movie where it was like you can tell the pitch for that movie, all the producers wanted was like, okay, just make a generic kind of B movie about a racetrack robbery, and that's all you got to do. But then he said, "No, I'm gonna make it like a Stanley Kubrick movie. I'm gonna make this like really, really well written and really well acted and really well everything." He took it so much further above, and that just seems to me like that's kind of like the pitch for this was probably like, yeah, it's just a classic '70s revenge exploitation movie. But then Paul Schrader was like, okay, no, I'm gonna make this like really, really good and well written and like elevate it so far above what you guys probably want me to make it. And yeah, it was my favorite of the three that we watched this week. I would call it a favorite now. So then you guys feel the same way?
Completely.
Yeah.
That thing I agree with you that disconnect that Tommy Lee Jones has is really like there's a lot of depth to like just the simplicity of the way they showed his character and everything. And I think he was just completely lost, and our main character was his homing beacon of a way to find his home. And so that's the only way he could connect with someone is with him. And I think that's why he was so willing to do whatever that dude asked of him. Which, so if we're gonna go kill people, like, sir, yes, sir, and everything. And I think personally, my favorite scene was the scene where he's with his wife's uh the cuckold of the relationship, and he has him tie his arms behind his back and pull it up higher and higher, and how when he poured him the glass of whiskey or bourbon or whatever the fuck it was, um he took it but he didn't drink it. He set it down and kept drinking his beer, and I was like, yeah, this you're one macho motherfucker.
That's right, as he said.
Yeah. That's when that scene happened is when I was like, oh, this is definitely a Paul Schrader movie. The flashbacks with him like, torturing himself still. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what he would put in a movie.
Much better than the card counter, I would say. Um, as far as
Apparently, Travis Bickle had a cameo in the original script.
I did read that,
And I
yeah.
was like, how would have that worked? Like, was he his taxi driver? Like, he gets into a taxi and it's just De Niro
What's
for a second. Just, what's up?
yeah, what's Travis Bickle doing in San Antonio, Texas, is my
Yeah.
question.
That would be the ultimate like pair up is William Devane, Tommy Lee Jones, and then Travis Bickle,
Right.
all killing people for the rest of like the movie.
Travis Bickle, the other two wouldn't have even needed to go into the place. Travis Bickle would have just killed them all, basically. And you're
Yeah.
right, that was very obviously the finale of the movie. Very Paul Schrader, very reminiscent of Taxi Driver. And just there were a lot of Paul Schrader isms in it. But yeah, so to sum up on Rolling Thunder, I would say, yeah, for sure, just great, great action movie, great drama, great just, as is always the case with Paul Schrader, great just psychological character study. That's, what he's best at. And I think this is no different. Just an examination of a guy who is just really, damaged in the head, except in this case, I guess because, it was rewritten after the fact by another writer. It isn't quite as grim as most of his movies are, at least as far as where the character ends up, because usually it's like a descent for the character. But I feel like in a way, it's not that he regains his humanity. It's just there's some humanity, at least somewhat, I think, still left in him, at least compared to other Paul Schrader movies, like, by the end. So It
He was pretty emotional and stuff when he killed the dude. He didn't really like he wasn't like he was just kind of blanked, like just boom boom, you know.
which dude?
When he killed the final guy, he finally, like he just shot him kind of behind the
Yeah.
bar.
I mean,
He didn't see, he had nothing on his face. He
a
was just like,
great and a great touch was he shot him twice and then he pulled the trigger the third time and it didn't like he was just going to keep shooting him until the thing was empty, regardless of whether he was dead or not. So it's
yeah, I
like he
noticed that
just
too.
a lot of hatred in him at that moment. But even still, I feel like again with Paul Schrader, usually it's like once they take the plunge they're just gone. But I feel like in this instance, yes, a lot of him is lost, but there's still, I don't know, it's almost like it was catharsis in a way where it's like now that he's done this, I don't know, like some kind of burden was lifted. That's what it seemed like, but maybe not.
Yeah.
And have you seen the Walking Tall movies?
I want to, but I have not.
Expect a similar vibe amongst the story through all three. And I think that's like if you're looking for the same thing, but not like a character that's already fucked up, but like the descent into it, that's a good franchise to stop just to watch.
Good deal.
And then the
Uh,
Dwayne the Rock Johnson one though. You still have
Yeah,
to watch
you
the
gotta tie it
oh
all.
back
yeah,
to
there's
that.
that one too. Yeah.
Carry on that
With
multi-layer.
Johnny Knoxville and Neil McDonough.
Okay, so I guess we'll move on to movie number two. And this was my pick because I was really curious about it. That would be 1983's Daniel, from Sidney Lumet, The Goat. Um, and I picked this one because I read about a year or so ago, I read his book, Making Movies, and he talked about this one a lot. This was one of his favorite movies of his own that he did. And it's funny because you can tell when you read the book, which movies of his are his favorites and which ones aren't based on how much he talks about them. And he mentioned this one probably more than any other. So I was deeply curious. I'm like, huh. Because he acknowledged like it was not a box office or critical hit at all when it came out. It was like very quickly forgotten. And he acknowledged that and said, well, I still think it's one of the best movies I've ever made. So since I'm just a massive, massive fan of his, I was very curious to watch this. And yeah, I gotta say, I don't know about you guys. I liked it for the most part, but it definitely was flawed, I thought. What did you guys think?
Meandered for a while for me, and I was just like, there's some really cool fades, and like I enjoyed the colors because like when they were outdoors, it was just had this like, at least in the version I was watching, it had this kind of like amber color over the protests and stuff, and I was really interested in that. And fuck no ketchup on no
Oh yeah.
that was
Matt,
hilarious.
I died when I saw that was your review. I was like, I can't believe he also mentioned the club snack. I did the same thing in my
Yeah.
review.
I saw that. Yep.
This
I
Because
was
was like, I'm glad I'm not the only one who that stuck with me.
I had to
I
write that down when I saw it because I was like, why is this so funny?
I was about to do a club sandwich review, and then right as I was about to type it out, they were in the orphanage, and he was like, "And if I catch any of you jacking off, I'm gonna tie it into knots." And I was like, "Oh,
That line actually made me laugh out loud. Yeah, that was a hilarious line.
Timothy Hutton was great in this movie, though. That's one thing you can't really deny is he
Oh
was.
yeah, for sure. And just for the audience, just to summarize, the plot of this one basically is it's kind of it's very clearly heavily inspired by the Rosenbergs, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who, were executed for espionage in the 50s and, were accused of being spies for the Soviet Union and shit. And it's basically you know, it's about, the characters are fictional. They're called the Isaacsons in the movie. So it's not really them, but it's pretty much them. But it's about their son, Daniel, who was a kid when they were executed, and he's an adult now, and he's kind of listless, and he's looking for answers as to like what their true involvement was, whether they were guilty or innocent, and he's kind of like it's set in the 60s. So it's like his parents were like, activists in the 40s, and now he's kind of around during the counterculture activism of the 60s and stuff. And it's like, his relationship with that is obviously influenced by his parents. So here were the positives. Sam, I love that you mentioned the colors, because that was something I remember he specifically talked about in the book, was how he, for a lot of the flashback scenes, he wanted to have certain kinds of colors that like highlighted the mood and the atmosphere of the time, and have like kind of more bleaker colors in the present day scenes to kind of highlight more of his mood, his emotional state. And I thought that worked very well. The colors seemed to be a bit brighter
Yeah.
in the flashback scenes.
Yeah, it was definitely like there's like a lot of soft lighting on those too. So like it was like, there's some halos around people and stuff like that. And then the 60s, it was just straight on, like,
Right, just very
mm,
kind of blue and kind of cold looking. So,
yeah.
um, but here are the positives, I would say. I liked it, in spite of its flaws. So he directed the shit out of it, of course. Um, just amazing shots, amazing like just the big wide shots of the city I thought were gorgeous. He knows how to shoot New York better than almost any other director. The emotional like one-on-one scenes I thought were very like intimate in a specific way, like when two characters were talking, like when they're talking in the jail, when they finally go to visit the parents in jail, and they're talking to him, and like the scene where he goes to visit the old man in the nursing home, like just really,
That's one that really stood out to me.
yeah,
And
like just really good, like intimate camera angles, and just really focusing on like the emotions, like close-up emotions of on the characters' faces. Um just so he directed it really well. The performances were great. I thought Timothy Hutton was great. Mandy Patinkin was a standout. I thought he was fantastic as his character. Lindsay Krause was great. Ed Asner was fantastic. Just gave such a compassionate performance, kind of as like, I mean, I think his character honestly cared more about them than their actual parents did,
that's
and
where
had their best interests more at heart. And I
the
thought he
scene
just,
where he talks to their aunt, or I think it was their aunt, and asks her like, "Have you no pity?" and everything, and I was just like, "Oh,
that was a great scene. These are not animals in the zoo. These are children without parents. Yeah. And yeah, so a lot of great moments. And I thought just a lot of individual scenes were really well done. I really thought that like, and I was interested in the story. It's just for me, the main problem is it never really gelled together. Like a lot of it, like you said, Sam, kind of meandered, and a lot of it kind of like it asked all these questions, but it never really like did anything with any of them. It was always because at the end of it, it's like, well, first of all, there were so many scenes where like Timothy Hutton's character just went through like a big transition, and it kind of just happened off screen. Like in this scene, we see him, and he just kind of doesn't really care about anything, and he's kind of just like, whatever. He's arguing with his sister at the table, and he doesn't really care. And then like, we'll have a flashback scene, and then when we cut back to the present, he's like, oh yeah, no, I care now, and I'm trying to start the foundation back up, and I'm trying to kind of like figure out more answers. And then it's like we do another flashback scene. I don't think the pacing was great. I thought that maybe the pacing could have been a little bit better with like the way the flashback and the present scenes were interspersed, and the way like the progression of his character, where he gradually kind of grows to care more and more about the case. It's like, yeah, like there were moments there, like him visiting his sister in the hospital and kind of seeing the state she was in, I think kind of influenced him to maybe care a little bit more. But I just don't think there was enough like in the writing that really signified that there was that big of a turnaround for him. I think we should have seen it. And there were a couple of, and again, like when he goes to visit the old man in the nursing home, that scene was kind of confusing to me, because I'm kind of like, well, he didn't really get an answer from the guy, but he's acting like he did. I don't know. Like there wasn't enough substance always in the character turns that people were taking to me. And again, just like the questions of like how involved were the parents, and like were they involved, and how much, and were they really spies, and even if they weren't, or if they were, like, kind of the bigger question to me that they never really like nailed, or gave any kind of a definitive answer to, I guess, was like regardless of whether they were actually spies or not, how like guilty were they as far as ruining their children's like innocence and their childhood and stuff, you know? Like, because they kind of imply at some points that like there were a lot of ways they could have either gotten out of jail or gotten a reduced sentence or something, and they refused all options that Ed Asner put in front of them because they wanted to like set an example for the party or whatever. But it's like, okay, well, you're leaving your kids orphans, you know, like you're ruining their lives. And it's like that was kind of what it seemed like they were implying for parts of the movie, but then other parts they were like, oh no, like that's not it. But then they were like, it is it, and it's not it, and it is it. And it's like, well, what? I don't quite understand, like, I don't know. It never really came together. It's like it was kind of like they were presenting all these ideas and they never really committed to one or really said, I don't know. How did you guys feel about it?
Um, I definitely agree because one of my favorite scenes is the execution scene, and I think that with that kind of more solidification, it would have made the viewer either feel horrible for them because they were not like doing these things, or it would have clearly been like they were involved in this and they were not good people. So this is kind of like a final statement. But what I really loved about that scene was all these close-ups of them like attaching the headpieces, and then it would cut to that super far away shot for the electrocution part. I think it really just kind of pinpointed how alone they actually were in the end, and kind of how they did all this stuff to be this image and a part of this thing and a part of these people, but in like they were alone, and she even asked to be alone at the end and everything, and it was just that was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
And that's again a good touch from Lumet, like directing it very well, like choosing to shoot the execution moment in the wide shot. And an interesting little touch, I don't know what you guys took away from this, that very random moment where she like kisses one of the guards randomly.
Yeah,
That kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, what's the backstory for this moment? I would love to know.
I think just she was alone and she needed some kind of like send off, and as a
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
one of those
wanted
it
to
was
feel
one of
something
those
one last
moments
time.
where go ahead, Matt.
I was saying she probably just wanted to feel something one last time, you know?
Probably.
wasn't
I
ever
I
seen
just
good.
thought it was very interesting because like on the one hand I was like that was kind of random, but on the other hand I was like, well, it got me thinking. Like just that little moment, there's so much that like it leaves to your imagination, like what exactly that was about. So that's good, you know. It gets you thinking about like, okay, so what's she been doing in the prison the whole time, forming relationships with people and you know, wanting to feel something there at the end. It was kind of a nice touch in a way.
I do really wish we had gotten a scene where like her hair was cut, because that cut to her in the prison with her haircut was very jarring. But I guess
Yeah,
that's what it's supposed to be for the children because they have not seen their mother in so long, and this is from their perspective. So
right. I also love um the contrast of, you know, the way both of the parents react when the kids meet them in the prison. She's much more collected and much more trying to kind of, you know, be there for them and is much more together, whereas the dad is kind of like freaking out, not
yeah,
really, almost kind of, I don't know if selfish is the right word, but more just kind of trying to justify his actions to them and to himself, and clearly much more manic. And again, I love the contrast of that, of like, you know, not just having the same scene play out
I
twice.
think one of the hardest hitting parts about that too was that they stated that the only reason they arrested her was just to get him even more closer to talking, and so like her death and everything that involves their mother is like really unnecessary,
Right.
and
And
so it's
yeah,
just
but see again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. They present so many like points of view, like, but they don't ever really hone in on one. And it's like you could say, well, they're leaving it up to you, but I just don't think it ever really, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. I don't know, like by the end, it's not like we don't really know, like we don't really have a very tangible idea of what happened. It's like it's one thing to like a good example of a better way to do this kind of thing is the movie Hollywoodland, where they present the murder of George Reeves, and it's like, okay, you have two options. Either he killed himself or he was murdered. And it's up to you to decide which one you think. You've got all the facts on the table, but here it's like there's like seven different possibilities, and they don't really present that much evidence to support one
Yeah.
more than the other, or I don't know. And then the end, the very end, again, I was kind of trying to figure out, I guess what it's supposed to signify is because at first I was kind of like, well, what's the message here? Is the message like that he's because clearly he's following in his parents' footsteps. And I guess the message to me was like he's doing he's doing what his parents would have wanted him to do and trying to make them proud, but he's doing it in a healthier way than they did, where he's not for one thing, he's not spying on anybody. And then for another thing, he because that shot at the end of him and his wife and his kid, you know, like kind of reconciling there, it signified to me, I guess, like, yeah, okay, they're going to stay together, they're going to stay a family, and they're going to continue their activism stuff. So in a way, it's like, yes, he's doing what his parents would have wanted, but in a healthier way where he's not going to break up his family the way they did. So, you know, when I thought about it that way, it was kind of like, okay, that's a nice little bow on the end of the movie there.
Really how intimate the scene where he was in the bed and she was laying next to him, just talking to him about the past and everything was. And I felt like you said, each individual scene had a lot of thought and a lot of stuff put into it. But like, and I don't know if it would have helped, but maybe even putting like a text of like a couple months later or like a certain number of months later, like just to kind of guide the person to know that it's still. And when it flashes back, just putting a day or a fall 19 something kind of would have
Yeah.
helped guide the person a little bit more.
That was kind of my main thing is it jumped around a lot and there wasn't any real rhythm to it. It was just kind of like I just feel like it could have been better paced and a bit more cohesive. And again, just with his jumps as a character, I thought like we could have had a little bit more exploring how he got there. It's like again, like in one scene, it'll be like, okay, yeah, I'm just fairly average, you know, like don't really care, kind of aloof, or I moderately care. And then you cut to the next scene and he's got like the super hippie looking outfit on, and he's just like, yeah, you know, I don't give a shit. I'm not like this guy over here. And I'm just like, when did he become this guy? I missed that scene, but I don't know. What'd you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, movie kind of did feel like it went back and forth on a lot of things where, kind of like you guys were saying, honestly, I agreed with most of it. One thing I liked at the very or at the end during the execution scene though was before when they had asked like if she was gonna die and they were like, "Oh no, if I'm not gonna die, but if I do, it's gonna be like the electric chair. It's painless." And then they were like, they check his heart rate and they're like, "We got to do it again."
Yeah, that was a fucked up moment. Yeah,
Yep,
like, and
I really like that. Honestly, I was like, "Oh shit."
that was great. I also like that to me that signified again like she was in a way, I don't know, tougher than his dad. Like he went out one shock, that was it. And it was like, oh no, we got to hit her a second time, you know. She hasn't gone down yet. So
And
um
also that she wasn't supposed to die
say
anyway.
what?
It hits home to that point where like that I was bringing up that they arrested her just to get him to talk. So like she wasn't supposed to die. So her not dying the first time was like that kind of
And
foreshadow.
Yeah.
that was very sad. Like that, oh, that scene where they're in the kitchen and she leaves like for the last, and she's like, don't worry, I'm just going down to testify, I'll be back, and she never comes back. And that was a heavy scene.
I
There were a couple of scenes like, and I also have to give a shout out to Amanda Plummer, who was fantastic as the sister. I thought she was a real standout. And her character's journey also was just very sad. Just seeing her as the little girl, like going through all that shit and like just seeing how much it messed her up and her death at the end was very emotional. I thought that was very, very sad. But yeah, overall, again, I think it was a solid movie. I enjoyed it, and I thought typical of Lumet, fantastic direction and fantastic performances. He always got the best out of his actors. Um, I like the scene in the dentist's office where he's arguing with the girl. That was one of my favorite scenes. I thought she did by the way, Sam, that actress was oh my God, I can't remember her character's name to save my life. The Alexandria lady, the leader from The Walking Dead,
Oh,
Tova
what?
Feldshuh is the actress's name. But she's young as hell in this. But
That's
I thought she
crazy.
was fantastic as well. But yeah, so solid movie, not perfect, definitely like flawed. Jumping back and forth a bit too much and never really quite came to the point. But yeah, pretty solid, I'd say.
Have you seen Q&A?
I want to.
I think that's one you should watch soon.
I've heard it's a good one. I'd like to get to it eventually. That's who's in that one? Is that
No.
Nick Nolte? Oh shit! Say no more. Sign me up.
Oh, I always get that confused with Affliction.
Oh, I love that movie
Which
too.
is a fantastic fucking movie.
Yeah, just because like every time I see the picture, like either the poster or like a picture of him, I'm like, which one is it from?
I guess it came out around the same time or pretty close, I think. Well, okay. I guess we can go ahead and move on to the last one, and that would be Mr. Patterson's pick up there.
The Fall Guy.
Yes.
Yeah, blockbuster of the summer. Am I right? I
Yeah,
actually don't know if it was.
made
I didn't
all the
see it in
money,
theaters.
definitely. No, it was a bomb.
Yeah, no, I saw it on or the extended cut on Peacock specifically. I don't know if you guys watched that one or not.
Did you,
Yeah,
Jack?
I when I was watching that movie, the number one thing I was thinking was, please give me the extended cut. I'm loving this so much. I have to see more of it. No, I watched the theatrical cut on Peacock.
Okay.
Better
Yeah.
But
version of it for sure.
yeah,
The extended cut definitely I was like watching it and I was like, why is this going on for so long? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm watching the extended cut. Just gotta remember that.
yeah, you
I
just
just
Probably
didn't.
saw
cut
it,
this in.
so you
I didn't
just
realize
saw
it
it,
was
so it's fresh in your head.
Yeah. I like the
Um,
nobody reference or like references to other movies in the beginning where they actually showed the behind the scenes stunts of that.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's neat. It was a
Um,
pretty fun movie. I don't
so
know.
But
to
only shows movies from that director in that company.
Huh?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Decided to do that, so
They didn't show Bullet
Um,
Train,
true.
but they did have a note that said on Aaron Taylor Johnson's wall, it said Pirate Bullet Train. It was one of his sticky notes.
in joke.
Yeah.
So to sum up, again for the audience, this is a fairly recent movie, but nevertheless, Fall Guy just came out earlier this summer. It's not really based on the TV show, but loosely based.
Only majors.
Ryan Gosling is a stunt man who gets into some trouble. He's got the main star is a dickhead, and he goes missing, and he's got to track him down. And he's on this movie with this director who's Emily Blunt, who's his ex-girlfriend, and they're trying to rekindle their romance and so on.
You need
So I'll let you two go first, so you can say some positive things about it. What did you guys like about it
First off, I did not know there was a TV show.
Yeah.
with Lee
Um,
Majors?
yeah, believe me. So at the very end, after the stunt, like the, goof credits where they show the stunts and all that, they have Lee Majors show up and Heather Thomas.
Oh,
I
that's
heard
That's
the
about I heard
actor.
that's
about that, but I
Yep.
didn't stick around to see it because I just
Oh,
wanted to shut the fucking TV
Aaron
off.
Aaron Taylor Johnson runs into a minefield to try to
Yep.
get a cellular signal, and he finally finds 3 bars, but then that triggers all the explosives out in the field, and it
And
blows
then
him up. And then the guy,
Stephanie Sue is like, get me Jason Momoa's agent on the phone.
Damn.
yeah.
Um, but so yeah, what did you guys like about it, or did you like it? I assume
I
you
enjoyed it a lot more the first time I saw it. This extended cut really dragged hard
did.
for me. Um, but I mean, like I enjoyed Aaron Taylor Johnson. because I don't see him very often.
Yeah, he was really funny doing the Matthew McConaughey impression at the end.
Okay, so we're all in agreement then that that was a Matthew McConaughey impression.
Oh yeah, the I was killing aliens long before I got paid to was like a
Yeah, I was like, that
reference
seemed
to
to
his
me like that's what he
commercials.
was doing. I'm glad that
Yep.
someone else heard it.
No, I thought that was cool. I really want to see him in more comedies, just doing zany stuff and not being like a serious action guy.
Yeah,
Because
he's good as Kick-Ass proved. He's good at comedies.
I really want Emily Blunt to get better roles because I know she's a great actress, and I just can't find a movie in the last 10 years that has really done that for me.
Oppenheimer.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
Uh,
yeah. And
and
this was the
Quiet
Oppenheimer
Place.
Barbie reunion, really, because
Yeah, I love that. This is the second leads of both of those movies. But yeah, so I guess I'll just go ahead and say I was extremely not a fan of this movie at
I
all.
figured
By
as much when I was watching. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
ah, Jackson's
watched
gonna like
I texted Matt. I was like, I know Jackson's not gonna like this movie.
Yeah, and look, I was really like the trailers for this looked not great to me. It looked like a very generic, just kind of action comedy, and I that's just. But then I heard everyone saying like, "Oh my God, it's so good! It's so like it's so much better than it looks." My brother really loved it. He said it was one of his favorite movies of the year, and I was like, "Okay, well, we'll see." I'm always rooting for David Leitch, and then I started it, and I was, vibing with it fairly well for the first 10 minutes.
I think once
And
the accident happens, it really like
yeah,
hit.
like pretty much after the credits, it lost me. I was just like, okay, no, I don't think you're getting me back. Um,
I liked the
Here's the
Ryan
thing.
Gosling looking like a bum.
Say what?
Because I liked when Ryan Gosling kind of looked like a bum when he had the long hair and was just like,
Yeah.
you
He
know, I don't know. I like that look on him.
here's the thing about David Leitch that I've realized. Um, Between this and rewatching Deadpool 2 earlier this year, which I'm also not a fan of, he needs to just do action movies and not do comedies. He does his thing now is action comedies, and he's a spectacular action director. He's a very bad comedy director. The worst part of all of his movies, whether it was this or Deadpool 2 or Hobbs and Shaw, is the comedy. It's always just not funny whatsoever. He doesn't know how to direct it because in this movie, the action scenes are phenomenally well directed. A lot of great action set
Yeah.
pieces in this. The comedy is so boring and so unfunny and is directed so lethargically. Like there are so many scenes it's just got the pace of a snail. It's like
Watching it with Stuart, and during the Taylor Swift car scene, Stuart was like, I can't watch any more of this, and went to
yeah, yeah. I wasn't quite at that level yet in that scene, but I was getting there because that was definitely one of the biggest examples of just like I feel like this would be funnier if it was directed better, but it's just not. It's just not hitting.
And it
And
clearly has nothing to do with Ryan Gosling or Emily Blunt because like they are clearly funny people like on their own.
no, they should have amazing chemistry and they are funny people. And I feel Ryan Gosling, I just felt like was sleepwalking through this whole movie. I just felt like with him, it's almost like he was aware that the idea of him playing the second banana who no one cares about is ridiculous because he's Ryan fucking Gosling. And
Mhm.
to compensate for that, he kind of intentionally subdued himself and made himself like less Ryan Gosling-y. Because that's just what it felt like to me. Like he was just way too subdued the whole movie. There were some moments where he came alive a little bit more, but I'm like, okay, look, you're in the movie. You're playing this character. You probably shouldn't be, but you are. So make it work. Be yourself. Like play to your strengths. Don't subdue yourself. And Emily Blunt honestly almost kind of felt like she was doing the same thing. But like and just again like the script was just bleh. I mean like I predicted Hannah Waddingham was the bad guy 20 minutes in. That was really obvious. I just thought that the romance was as boring and cliched and as cookie cutter as you can fucking get. I mean, like Jurassic World levels of I don't give a shit about this romance. And literally, I predicted one of the lines before he even said it. It was so predictable. It was like, And this is the moment I was already really hating it by this point, but this is the moment I was actively like, fuck this movie in its ass. Um, is when he's on the scene on the boat where he's talking to her on the phone, and he's like, getting lit on fire really hurts. Getting thrown against a wall really hurts. And I literally said it out loud. But nothing hurt more than not having you around. But nothing hurt more than not having you around. I'm like, go fuck yourself. And then, but not only just that line, but the fact that they took a moment to pat themselves on the back, where right afterwards he says, oh man, that was pretty good. You can use that if you want. I was like, actively fuck this movie. Just fuck yourself in your asshole. Actually patting yourself on the back for a line that terrible and predictable. Like, just and then David Leitch has fourth act syndrome in a lot of his movies. Remember Hobbs and Shaw, how like they had the third act, they had the climax, the movie felt like it was over, and then it's like, oh no, it's not. We have a whole extra 45 minutes where they go to Samoa. Same fucking thing here. We have like we have the scene on the boat, and then we have the scene where he's driving them around in the car, and then like that's the climax, but then they keep going where they're chasing after him in the helicopter and shit. And I'm just like, I was literally begging for the movie to end. And I don't do that often these days. Like, but I was literally sitting here just like, Jesus fucking Christ, just end this thing already for the love of God. Like, it's done. Just end it. But, and also just, I know it's a comedy, but some of the shit in this movie really just stretched belief. Like, using a deep fake on footage of a murder on a news broadcast, like no one's gonna check that and find out it's fake. I was like, give me a fucking break with this. And like the scene where she's like throwing him against the rock and lighting him on fire repeatedly, I was like, any person who did this would be fired like immediately. I know it's a comedy, but they're taking such pride in having these moments where they try to depict everything so realistically. Like, oh yeah, this is written by people who really know how a movie set works. And then you just have stupid shit like that where it's like, I don't know. And so many other stupid moments of just like,
They keep winking at the audience way too much. Yeah, like
yeah,
way too much. Like,
You would have really hated that
yeah.
moment in Tina Cut because when she's throwing him against the wall, like over and over again, she goes on and on about the plot of the movie that you've seen
Yep.
thus far and everything you already know as an audience member and their relationship and where things went wrong and what she is like mad at him about. And it just,
They did that. I mean, they did that to a lesser extent already in the theatrical cut, where that stupid bit with her yelling over the megaphone, just like, yeah, so say that he just abandoned her all of a sudden, and she did all this, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I fucking
Yeah.
hate it.
this gets more and more unprofessional on the set the more the scene goes on.
And like anyone who did this shit would be like fired immediately. This is insane. I mean, again, they put so much emphasis on like, if this happens, if this thing happens or doesn't happen, then the movie will be shut down. Like it's like setting realistic standards, but then like you have goofy shit like that, and it's just like, I don't know.
But yeah, it was just an all right movie. I don't know. For me, it was just like I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like, damn, this is really great.
Just yeah, goofy and kind of stupid, and just the script was really bad, I thought, and just I would have much rather watched the movie they showed the trailer for at the end than the one I was watching, and that's never a good thing. All right, well, I
Love
guess
Rolling
that's
Thunder. Fuck
We're
the
out.
Fall Guy. Daniel, pretty good, but needs some more points.
2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it. I guess we're all good for this episode, for the inaugural episode of 3 for 3.
Woo.
And we did it, boys.
Popped our cherry.
That's right, got the first one out. But okay, well, I think we did it, fellas. So see you all later.
Deuces.
All right. Peace.